Hello again, friends. Well, after some deliberation, I've decided to tackle music theory next. So don't panic. If you've been following the course sequentially as intended, then you've got the chords in the key of C, in the key of G, and in the key of D. And with a capo anywhere in the first 4 frets, you can now play songs in any key. So there's enough to be going on with there. Also, in lessons 10 to 13, we did strumming patterns, and in lesson 13, we even did some complex stuff, some syncopation and some reggae. All that sort of stuff. So there's plenty to be going on with there. We'll do some licks and we'll do some finger picking. Finger picking, what do you... and all that sort of stuff. And we'll also do the keys of A and the key of E, because a lot of rock and blues is played in those keys. But if you want to improvise, if you want to play along with music, or you play with other people, play lead guitar, write songs, in other words, if you want to become a musician, then you'll need some basic music theory. It's not going to be very complex, but it's going to set you free. So first of all, today, before we get into that, let's have a look at where all the G notes are. This is important for music theory. You've got to know where your notes are. And if you haven't followed the course sequentially, as it's supposed to be, then you can check out lessons 7 to 11 for the notes on each string, particularly 7, where we did the notes on the E string, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, just not the sharps and flats. And then in lessons 16, 17 and 18, we did the A, C and E notes. So today we're going to do all the G notes. Now you remember, the way we do this is we're not allowed to play an open string, and we're not allowed to play beyond the 12th fret. So we've got to find a G note somewhere in this string, and we find it here. If you've followed those lessons before, if you haven't, you need to go back and check out those lessons, particularly lesson 7. And the G note is at the 3rd fret. So we play the note, we fret the note, and we say the note G. That's the way to do it. So we say G. Okay, now the next string is A, and we could go all the way up counting A, B, C, D, E, F. But G is the immediate note before A. The alphabet finishes at G, the musical alphabet, we know this. And it starts again at A. So if this is A, if A is at the open string, then A is also at the 12th fret. Again, if you've been following the course, you know that. So we just go down 2 steps, 2 frets, 2 semitones, 2 notes, however you like to look at it. And that's G. Now on the 4th string, the G is here. It's where we would fret the string if we were tuning the open G string at the 5th fret. The G, well, this is the G string, but we're not allowed to play it open, so we need to play it at the 12th fret. G again. So we've got the B string, C, D, E, F, G. So that's a little bit complicated there. That's at the 8th fret, if we count it out. And then the top string is the same as the bass string, G. Okay, so now what we do is we go up and down 3 times, saying and playing the notes. So we just do G, say it, play it, G, 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 and G. And go back down is a little bit more difficult then. G, 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 and G. And if we can go up and down 3 times without making a mistake, then that'll begin to program itself into our brain. It's kind of like a muscle memory thing. And we'll move on and look at some more notes next time. So, okay, let's get on with the music theory. All right, well, we're going to talk about scales, chords and keys, but first we need to know what those words mean. So think about this, and if you don't understand, you can ask questions in the comments. But a scale is a series of single notes that sound harmonious, and that just means they sound good or right to your ear, when they are played in sequence, that is one after the other. So we could play it wouldn't necessarily have to be a major scale like that, but that is a scale, picking out certain notes. We could play that would be a minor scale, but it's a series of single notes which sound harmonious together. And there's rules about which notes there are. That's what music theory is about. Now, a chord is a group of notes that sound harmonious when they're all played simultaneously instead of one after the other. So you could play those notes as, that would be like a scale. Actually, it's called an arpeggio because we're playing the single notes in a chord. But a chord is a group of notes that sound harmonious to your ear when they're played simultaneously all together. Now, a key is kind of a bit of a combination of both. You could think of it as a scale of chords, really, but it's a group of chords that sound harmonious when they're played in sequence, and that can be called a chord progression. So I can take any of the chords in the key of C, play them in any order. Doesn't matter what order you play them in, they're all going to sound as though they go together. So we've got scales, we've got chords, and we've got keys. Right, well, back in lesson 7, we had a crudely drawn diagram rather like this. What's an octave? I've lost that one, so I've got an even more crudely drawn one here. But basically, it's supposed to represent a screen on one of those oscilloscopes, a little gadget that you find in laboratories. It's got a green screen that shows you wavelengths on the screen. And if you pick a low A, like that, you get a wavelength that you see in the diagram on the left there. And the wavelength may be 2 centimeters, shall we say, between the peaks of the waves. But if you play an A at the 12th fret, which is an octave higher, then you'll get a waveform that looks like the one in the second diagram, where the waves are only 1 centimeter apart, so it's half the wavelength basically. The note sounds similar, it has the same sort of qualities, but it's obviously higher or lower in pitch. So we've only got 2 notes. Well, obviously you're not going to make music with just 2 notes, which are basically the same note anyway. And I think it was one of those ancient Greek guys, I think it was Pythagoras, who made up all that maths you didn't like at school. He's walking past the blacksmith shop one day and he noticed that the hammers were making different sounds on the anvils, and he wondered why, different sizes of hammers. And he started experimenting with different weights, and he found that, you know, if you had 1/3 of the size, you would get something like that. If you had 1/5 of the size, you would get something like that. And he thought, well, that sounds harmonious together. And he filled in various other notes, and there were some notes that didn't kind of really go, and they didn't sound right. And I think then he started experimenting with hanging different weights on probably pieces of string, I would have guessed. Same sort of thing. And he kind of figured out this, what we call the major scale, or the diatonic major scale eventually, which is 7 notes. And it's, we did this back in video 7. And they have certain intervals on the fingerboard, the root note, wherever you start. It doesn't matter which note you start on. You go up 2 frets, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets, 2 frets, 2 frets, and 1 is back to the octave, and that's why it's called an octave, because there are 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th note is the same as the first note, oct 8, and that's why it's called an octave. Now keep in mind this was all worked out mathematically. It was nothing to do with artistic appreciation of music. It was a mathematical thing. And someone said music is actually the pleasure we get from hearing maths made audible. And when we're doing this music theory, we're going to be using a lot of maths, simple maths, don't worry, it's nothing complicated. It's not calculus, it's just if you can add to 12, you should be able to do it. And the important part about this is that that major scale doesn't just tell us what notes to play in the various scales. It tells us which chords are in a key and which notes are in each and every chord in that key. It's all one of those 7 notes. So if we take the major scale of C, we play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We usually teach music theory in the key of C because as it happens, you don't land on any of the sharps and flats. It's just C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So it's just all the natural notes, if you like. And each of those notes is the root note of a chord. So you have a C chord, a D, it's a D minor, an E, it's an E minor, an F, it's just an ordinary F, F major if you like, a G, which we can't play as a 7th, an A, A minor, a B, which we didn't look at, it's a B diminished, it's a diminished chord. We didn't look at that in the key of C, but it's one of the things, and then back to C again. So each of those notes in the major scale is then the root note of each chord in the key of C. And within each chord, it's 3 of those 7 notes. Each chord comprises 3 out of different 3 notes, but it's all those notes. There's no sharps or flats in any of the notes, in any of the chords in the key of C. So that major scale is everything. That's the root of chord formation, of scale formation, and of key formation, if you like. It's very important, the diatonic major scale. That's the basis of all Western music anyway. Oh, you may be wondering by now, well, what about all the sharps and flats? There's actually 12 notes, it's not just the 7 notes. Well, yes, I think that music has developed over the couple of thousand years since the ancient Greeks, whatever it's been, started it. And but what our guitar fretboard shows us is that the notes are not evenly spaced apart in pitch. This must have dawned on people eventually. So for instance, this is an A note and this is a B note. So we've got 2 steps. We've got quite a big jump up in pitch. This is a B and this is a C. So we're not going up very far to get to C. So there's a much bigger pitch interval, shall we say, between A and B than there is between B and C. So how to correct that? Well, the only thing is we need to put some extra notes in between those notes that have the largest pitch interval. So E to F is fine, it's only 1 step, and B to C is only 1 step. But the rest of the notes are 2 steps apart, so we need to put something in between. Now, what they've come up with is a bit silly, but it would have been better if they just renamed the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, or better still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You probably wouldn't need music teachers because all this sharps and flats business is confusing, but it's just names. See, if you think this is A and this is B and you want to put a note in between to keep the pitch intervals the same as it is between E and F or B and C, then what are you going to call it? A and a half or B minus? Well, what they've called it is B flat. So B flattened down, but not as far as A. Or you could actually say A sharpened up, but not as far as B. So that's the note. So that's how we get sharps and flats. It's the notes that are in between. And they can be called either way. And this is one I come across a lot. C to D. And I always call it C sharp, C sharpened up, but not as far as D. But quite often, especially if you're playing with a keyboard player, they'll call it D flat, D flattened down, but not as far as C. But it doesn't matter whether it's C sharp or D flat, it's the note in between C and D. So we've ended up with 5 sharps, 5 flats, what are called incidentals, between the naturals, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And this is to even out the pitch intervals between all the notes. Now, there's a problem with that. And there's a problem of understanding, because when we use words like sharps and flats, we give the impression that they're different from other notes and that their half notes are halfway between the whole notes. That impression's reinforced by the layout of the piano keyboard, where there's black and white keys, which might be good for reading music and it's well good for getting your hands around, but it doesn't indicate anything about the pitch of the notes. The worst thing is that all the notes and the pitch intervals between them are all called semitones, and the word semi means half, so a semitone must mean half a note, mustn't it? Well, it's easy to believe that the note between F and G, which we would call F sharp, is a semitone or a half note, half a step up from F, half a step down from G. But it's hard to see how F can be half a step up from E when it's only one flat, one fret, or how C can be a semitone. It's a whole tone, isn't it? B to C is a whole tone. No, it's not. It's a semitone. So it's just crazy. It doesn't seem rational. Why is it called a semitone or a half step and not a tone or a whole step? So what's important to remember is that these are just names. Unfortunately, the guitar fretboard layout makes it clear, unlike the piano keyboard, that there is exactly the same distance in pitch between E and F as there is between F and F sharp and F sharp and G. It doesn't matter whether we call each fret a step, a note, a semitone, or a stick of rhubarb, because it's all the same to us. We could call them apples, pears, oranges, bananas, it doesn't matter. It's just a name. So sharp and flat doesn't mean anything. It just means it's just what we call the note. That's what's important to remember. So to sum up, think of each of these one fret steps up or down as a note, a whole note, and nothing but a note, even if all of them are confusingly called semitones, which means half a note. I give up. Anyway, including those that don't have a sharp or flat between them, and there's still a semitone. So E to F's a semitone, B to C is a semitone. Honestly, your granny could have come up with a better idea than this. But it doesn't indicate anything about pitch, so just keep looking at it all as simple arithmetic. We've got 12 notes and you won't get confused, hopefully. Well, I'm just going to leave it there for today. That's just an introduction to music theory, and the most important thing is to just keep learning the notes that we've been doing over the lessons, especially what we learnt in lesson 7 about the sequence of notes. That'll be really useful, and these are the sort of charts that we'll be getting into next time, looking at how chords and keys and whatnot are made up, going on to scales after that. So see you then, guys.